Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at how to make a curved track, kind of like from, say, hard driving, the old arcade game, or if you think of some of the 3D Sonic games where you had to go through these 3D loop-de-loops. Likewise, you could also use this for, say, a roller coaster because that also goes up through a loop and comes out the other end. So that's what we're going to do. Couple things before we begin. First of all, by default, select is right click. So if you go to File and you go to User Preferences and you click on Input, I've changed it to left. So you can keep it to right if you want. You just have to remember that if I say left, then it's right for you, or you can just change that. Second of all, I'm not saying this is the only way to do this. I'm not saying this is the best way to do this. I'm saying this is a way to do it. And I usually choose a way to do something for the purposes of clarity and teaching. Okay, so having said that, let's continue. I strongly believe in not reinventing the wheel. So what we're going to do is rather than trying to manually create a curve, we're going to take a curve that Blender has already created and just repurpose it. So let's delete the block that's here. So just click delete on your keyboard and then left click on the word delete, and now delete the block. Click on add mesh. We'll go to cylinder. In the lower left corner here for cap fill, choose nothing. That way it's hollow. So right now this doesn't have any thickness. We'll add thickness at the end because if we do it now, it's just going to be extra lines getting in the way. So zoom in using the scroll wheel. Change this in the lower left corner to edit mode, and next to it, change to wireframe so we can see all the vertices. When you see me rotate like this, I'm left clicking on I'm pressing down on the center mouse button and then moving the mouse. So sorry, not a left click, pressing down on the scroll wheel, the center mouse button, and then rotating. If you don't remember, A toggles selection and deselection. So if everything is selected or if anything is selected at all and you press A, it deselects. If nothing is selected and you press A, it selects all. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete some vertices. So we're going to left click here, zoom in a little bit, rotate a little bit, shift left click, shift left click, and now we've highlighted some vertices, edges, and some facings. And just so you know, there are buttons down here that let you choose facings. I just want you to become familiar with the idea that a lot of what you're doing is the manipulation of vertices. So go ahead, hit the delete key, choose vertices, and now you have a gap here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take half of this and skew it up on the z-axis. So if you think about it, if this here is going to move up, then that means an object could enter on this side, go around the curve, and then come out on the other side. Now we're going to extend these at the end, so it's not in the way now. We're just going to handle giving this like a twist. So there's a lot of ways to do this. Let's do it manually so you, again, get in the habit of dealing with vertices. So left click, shift, left click, and again holding shift, and then just grab the blue arrow so you're moving this up along the z-axis. You got to get it way out of the way. So we're going to rotate, and you want this to be higher than this. That way you're not in line with it. You've actually gone past it. So we'll raise up. There we go. Now it's just a matter of lining these up. So let's zoom in a bit. So it's just a matter of clicking and then shift clicking and then moving the blue arrow up. And this is not an exact science. A lot of this, since you're just eyeballing it, what looks right to you. Again, click, shift click, click, shift click. So when you click the first click, you're not shift clicking because you don't want that one to be selected anymore. So it's click and then shift click. So it's not a matter of semantics that makes a difference. Because if I shift click now, then they're both selected. We'll press A to undo that, well, not to undo, but to deselect. So the first one is click, the second one is shift click, and then press up. Click, shift click. All right. So that actually looks pretty good. So now, let's kind of scale this down. So let's, in the lower left corner here, click on Object Mode. Click S on the keyboard for scale. Z to lock the Z axis, because remember, up and down in Blender is Z, whereas in Unity it's Y. We'll just press down, enter. There we go. So now it's a lot easier to see what you've got. You've got this nice smooth curve. I mean, you could tweak this a little bit. Now that we're looking at it from this angle, go back to edit mode, click there, shift click there, tweak this a little bit. And again, there's probably an automated way to do this, but for beginners, it's really important for you to understand that what you're doing is you're dealing with vertices. So now we just need this to extend out and this to extend out. So left click and then shift left click. And let's just go along the z-axis, the green, I think that would be the y-axis. Likewise, click, shift click. We'll move this one out to smooth out that difference. Let's just rotate around. Yep, that looks good. Likewise, we need to do the same thing with this one. So we'll take this, move it out. Oops, sorry, got ahead of myself. Control Z. It's a teachable moment. Control Z is undo. Shift left click, bring this out. Again, left click, shift left click, bring this one out to smooth it out. And maybe this one too. Left click, shift left click. Yeah. A little bit sharp there, but again, this is prototyping. And you can see that it's a little bit close, but they are indeed not touching. So either way, either they come up this way and they come out this way, or they come in this way and they go out that way. And there you go. There is your curved track. So it's a little bit severe. You'd probably want to tweak this so it's not quite so much. So let's do that just a little bit. So let's left click, shift, up on the blue arrow, left click, shift left click, up on the blue arrow, left click, shift left click, up on the blue arrow, left click, shift left click, up on the blue arrow. There we go. And then, of course, you could extend these out more. You could have started with more vertices. There's a lot you can do, but this gives you your spiral. Now, as I mentioned, this has really no thickness to it. So what we're going to do is we are going to click on the wrench icon in the upper right corner here, and it's for modifiers. Click on Add Modifiers, and we click on Solidify. Left click on Thickness, hold, and move to the right. It's a little bit hard to see when you are in wireframe mode, but there is this additional line here. So let's go ahead and click on, next to Edit Mode, click on Solid, and now you can see, indeed, it has thickness. So that's about it. It's important to note, though, that with this thickness, let's go back to wireframe mode. We'll zoom in. See how this line is different than this one? Let's click B for box select, left click and drag. See how you're not grabbing that inside? So it's important to note that this thickness is not, you haven't created new vertices per se. If I move these out, these will move with them. So in other words, sometimes you may actually want to, whereas we use basically a ribbon and gave it thickness, you actually may want to use a block and make a curvature, a curve on your own. Because in this case, I can't change this inside. I can overall change the thickness, but you don't actually have vertices here that you can select. So it's an important point to realize the difference. So in this case, we really don't care about that. It's fine, but I just want to point that out that you can't manually then create, say, like a speed bump or something because you don't have inner um, inner vertices. It looks like you do, but you do not. That's part of the reason why it's grayed out, so to let you know that it is actually a calculation. So I think that should about do it. If you want, we can export this. So File, and we'll do Export, and it's FBX. And I already tested this, so it already has loop track. So we'll export FBX. We'll go to Unity. We go to that folder. There it is, loop track. Drag and drop it. Put it into the scene. Now we just need to rotate this. Let's see. Is it like 90 that way? Like 90 this way? Because here's the camera and we're looking down the camera. There we go. I think that's about right. Let's click on the main camera and see down here. We can scale this a bit. You can scale it a lot. You can either click on the object itself and change the scale factor here. Say make it like 5 and then apply. You got a much bigger track. Let's make it like 4. And there you go. Or you could just scale the object itself. There's other things that you can do too, because as you notice, this looks kind of rough. There's smoothing that can be done, but again, we're just doing prototyping. I'm not worried about smoothing yet. I'll do a separate tutorial for that. And as you can see, this edge is a little bit harsh. So like I said, you could tweak that a little bit more so it changes a little bit more gradually. But again, prototyping, placeholder graphics, this is just to get you into get you the ability to create these prototypes for your games. All right, so that should about do it then.